The power of one person can start with speaking up. A Loves Park bakery owner says a fight for her own safety uncovered a problem she never expected. Months later, that concern reached Springfield.
Miriam Niesmeyer talked with the owner and a state senator about how one personal experience raised a much bigger question and why she refused to let it end with her.
Mike, Sydney, I spoke with Halo Bake Shop owner Elizabeth Malone and State Senator Steve Stadelman. Malone says harassment pushed her to seek court protection. Then she learned the person accused of stalking her had not received the final court order.
He did threaten to kill me a couple of times.
Halo Bake Shop owner Elizabeth Malone says harassment through multiple phone calls started after her 2024 annual Pride fundraiser, then escalated into death threats.
I kept being told that no one could do anything until harm was threatened to me personally. And even after that happened, I really didn't get the help that I thought I should.
Malone eventually secured a 2-year no-contact stalking order.
So I went to the courthouse and went through all of those proceedings, and they granted it to me, and then things kind of fell apart.
Malone says harassment and threats returned. She called the sheriff's department and learned the person accused of stalking her hadn't received the final paperwork.
I was so angry that, I thought that this was in place for my protection, and it wasn't. But until that person is actually served that paperwork, you're not protected at all.
Malone took that problem to State Senator Steve Stadelman.
So there's this gap between the first emergency order protection and the final order protection that has to be served by law enforcement. And so that leaves victims of domestic violence vulnerable.
Stadelman sponsors Senate Bill 3044. The new law inspired by Malone ensures that the order of protection remains fully enforceable throughout the entire process.
And so because of her bravery of what she endured and what she experienced, she came forward and she helped us fix that gap and add additional protections for victims of domestic violence.
Malone later testified in Springfield. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the measure Tuesday, turning the problem she brought forward into state law.
I've met a lot of women along the way that have been too afraid to speak up, and I wanted to be that person for anybody else that needed it.
Stadelman also points to the scale of the issue. He says Illinois law saw 62,000 petitions for order of protections last year, showing how many people rely on court order protections for their safety.
Thank you, Miriam. And the new law takes effect January 1st of 2028 and was signed by the governor Tuesday.
A man accused